Hi, everyone. So lovely to see you again on the Helsi Show. Really excited to have Benny with me today from the Soul House studio. Benny has quite a background in many different things that we will explore, including sort of background in the professional life, in the social services. Would you say social service?
Emergency services.
And more recently working in the wellness space and focusing especially on self-empowerment of people in their health journey of getting healthy, staying healthy, being more independent from, I guess, expectations of what it should be when you have issues and so on. So welcome on the show.
Thanks, Sebastian. Really appreciate you asking me to come on and talk a little bit, and hopefully I can mention some topics and pass on some things that I've learned and people find that interesting.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah, so good. And you're local too. You're in Byron Bay.
I am just on the outskirts, on a small little town. I think people from 100 kilometers away claim Byron Bay these days. So I won't do that. I say Northern Rivers.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. You were born here?
I wasn't born in Western Sydney,
Which
is, you might not know, but it's probably not the place most people in Australia would associate with someone who's health conscious.
Yes.
Grew up quite a tough upbringing. Western Sydney was very much blue collar, low socioeconomic. It has changed a lot since then, but I came up to the Northern Rivers 22 years ago.
Holy cow.
It's quite a transient area when you're young. I came and went a few times, but I'm back for good now.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes, and you really explored the health space probably because of, well, actually I've read your bio and it talks about chronic pain that came from your previous work, right?
Yeah. Yep. Well, breathwork's a big part of what I do.
Mhm.
And I didn't know this at the time. I found this out after my chronic injuries. But to take it back a little bit further, I was 7 years old and I'm the youngest of four. And my eldest brother threw a piece of firewood in the air to get it closer to the house. That was one of his jobs. And it landed on my nose. And if anyone's watching this in the camera, they could probably see my nose looks pretty cooked and mangled. And back in the early 90s, the ED doctors just pulled my nose back over because it was hanging off to the right side of my face. They pulled it back over, put 2 butterfly tapes on it and said to my parents, he'll be fine, it'll heal. And they were right, the outside healed, but the internal architecture was completely stuffed. And so my whole childhood, I was a chronic mouth breather. I could not breathe through my nose. Take it forward to teenage years, I'm playing sport and I'm wondering why I'm completely gassed out playing footy when all of my teammates around me were doing fine in the first 15, 20 minutes and I trained so hard. So that never clicked with me, that there was something wrong with my breathing. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm a firefighter at the time, and I did have some chronic injuries with my back. It wasn't anything romantic, like pulling someone out of a burning building. Unfortunately, I was on my time off. Twice I did it surfing, and again, wasn't surfing big waves. I was surfing like a 1 foot wave, and I just had a little bit of chop come, and I jolted my back, and I was out of action for a little bit, came back, did it again surfing, out of action for a bit, came back. The third time I was living on 20 acres just outside of Bangalore here, and I was lifting a log, and I was completely immobile after that. So much so that my wife, my partner at the time, who's my wife now, Olivia, she had to dress me. I couldn't touch my knees. I couldn't hinge at the hips. I was in immense pain. I was still subscribing to the Western medical way of healing, I'll say. And so I went down the path of specialists, and I had the pressure of, we were wanting to start a family soon. We didn't have kids at the time. I thought my way to financial freedom was through investment properties. So I had a couple of properties at the time, and I just thought I really need to keep the money coming in to provide this life that I thought I needed and wanted. I didn't want to go down the path of surgery, but I found myself there, and I opted to have surgery. I had surgery on my back at 30 years old. And I was without pain just for about 2 months, and then it came back. And that was the point where I reassessed everything in my life. Up until that point, my wife now, Olivia, she's followed her own path of naturopathy and homeopathic studies a long time before this, but she just let me follow my own path. But when I opened up to, hey, there's something wrong here, I keep outsourcing my own health. The more I pay, the more health I should get in return is how I was feeling.
Right.
That's where I started to reassess everything. That's where I realized, oh shit, breathing's a part of what's going on with my body. I didn't actually injure myself from surfing and lifting a log. They were the end results of a lifetime of bad habits and living a lifestyle which wasn't conducive to health, and overhauled everything. And that was about 15 years ago that started.
So when you talk about bad habits, do you mean like more, like, was that related to your back, like bad habits in terms of how you lived and things, or more than that?
Yeah, that's like drilled right down. But we talk globally, bad habits about the lifestyle I was engaged in. So we spoke just before, but for everyone listening, I'm not your typical ex-firefighter. I wasn't a government firefighter in a station and the truck traveling around and usually having coffees.
Very romantic.
Yeah. No, I was a private industry firefighter. So I was flying around Australia to different projects, and I worked in an underground gold mine for 2 years, providing search and rescue capabilities there. I worked in iron ore. I worked in gas plants. And so that was predominantly a chunk of time working and then a chunk of time off. So in my time working, the one company who I did 8 years with, who was a big chunk of that career, was founded by 2 ex-SAS operatives. And a lot of the guys they brought in were ex-military, who were some of the best crew I've ever worked with. The camaraderie in that part of my career is something that I really look back fondly on, and I loved, and I'm still really close with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But I also felt the need to adapt to the way that they were working, and we had really high standards of fitness. We had a quarterly fitness test, which we had to pass, or we were stood down until we passed it.
Wow.
We had an hour a day that we had to spend in the gym, and we had a PT who wrote the program for us. So I was lifting the heaviest weights I've lifted in my life. I was pushing my body so hard. I'd come back for my 2 weeks off. I was living in Manly, like we spoke about at the time, and alcohol was a food group for me. You know, I'd have a great time.
That's a good one.
I was completely dry for 2 weeks on site. We're on call. You know, we work hard. We come home. We play hard.
Yeah.
I didn't take care of my body, so I went straight into. I'm sure we'll get onto this, but someone who I'm studying under in his academy, Paul Check, he has a great example of how we move our body and where that goes to. So workout, we would all associate with going to the gym and lifting some weights, but that comes absolutely last once we've got general movement down pat, and then we know how to work in, cultivate energy. We can't expend energy working out until we've worked in, and we cultivate that energy. So we've got that to expend. And I didn't have general movement down pat. I had this, with my back, I had that at a young age. There was scoliosis that was completely untreated there. I was a master compensator. So I tried to play football at a high level, and I was never going to do that. But I found a great way to compensate. And I think growing up in the area that I grew up in, I was just a battler, and I'd do anything to get there. And so that carried on throughout my life. So I didn't have general movement down pat. I didn't know how to work in. If I was doing anything to cultivate energy, it felt very feminine and not what I should be doing at that time in my life. I needed to get my energy out. And so I just went to work out. Lifestyle habits, the things I ate, drinking lots of alcohol, late nights out, all these things culminated into injuries that really turned my life upside down.
Yeah, wow. And then 2 months after, so you finished that work up, and you moved to the Northern Rivers, and then 2 months after your surgery, what did you do then?
I was still working. I was on a contract in Western Australia at the time. Moved to the Northern Rivers, and I was flying over there for work. I'd had the surgery over here. I recovered really quickly. Again, I paid a heap of money to get the best surgeon to get the most health out of it. And I returned to work really quickly, and I thought, I've done it. I've done it again. I've nailed it. Let's go back into what I was doing. Didn't change anything about my practices. I was actually at work, and I was just getting up off a chair and just instant pain again. For those wondering, I had an L5 S1 disc herniation, which is the most common back injury for men in Australia. And that surgery is the least effective common surgery in Australia. So it doesn't have a very good success rate at all.
Do you know what it is?
What's that?
Percentage-wise?
Less than 50.
Ooh.
Yeah. So more than 50% need further treatment, either surgery or serious rehab after it.
So they put it back into place? Is that what they do?
They cut it. So I had a microdiscectomy. They make an incision in the back. So it can be major surgery. It goes through the abdomen.
Ooh.
But I had a small incision in the back, and they just trim the disc off, right? But obviously there's a reason the disc has herniated. There's compression, there's torsion, there's twisting, whatever that might be. It might be structural, it might be lifestyle based. But that needs to be addressed, or what's going to happen again? The disc is going to blow out again. Might blow out the same way, might blow out the other way. So most people go back in for a second discectomy. I had pain come back, and I had an MRI to find out what was going on. And my GP says to me, yep, the disc herniation's out the same side. It's come out again.
Meaning like it grows?
It just has too much pressure on it. And the disc is like a fluid sac, and it just pushes out to the side.
Yeah.
And so my disc was resting on the nerve pack to my left leg. So I had this nerve radiating pain down my left-hand side. But that's not where the issue is. No. It's coming from the nerve pack, which comes out of the spine. And I remember that conversation. I was sitting in the same house that we have now, and I just thought, all this is going in one ear and out the other. I'm not listening to this guy anymore, because that's not the path I'm ever going to take anymore. I had a conversation with my wife that night, and I just decided I'm going to try things that work for me. I realize now that I've put my health into other people's hands. I've put my longevity, the rest of my life, a back injury at 30 years old shouldn't be messed around with. I'm going to try things for myself and see what I find. And I found lots of stuff, some very simple, some a little bit more complicated, but what they all did was just empower me to take control of my body, my path.
You're right. So where did you go from there? Like you still kept your job, obviously, as far as you could work.
Yeah. So I was, I found myself off work again. I didn't want to exacerbate the injury, but I also felt oddly at peace, knowing that I had a knowing that I was going to get through it and I was going to get back to work. We had a daughter on the way at this point. We didn't know it was a daughter, but we have 3 beautiful daughters now. We had our first on the way. And I just wanted to lean into things that really that worked for me. I talk about this quite a bit with my wife. One thing I do know about my upbringing is I'm quite different to the rest of my family. I was always called the hippie or the alternate one. And growing up in Western Sydney, you don't have to do things too differently to be called that. I mean, no one that gets thrown around a lot up here, but very different to where I grew up. And I just had this knowing that I'd be able to get through it. I wasn't in absolute agony when I got back after I got up off that chair, and I could move around. It wasn't like the time before. What I did, probably the most amazing practice I did, was my wife had a $20 acupressure mat off eBay, long before the Shakti mat was a thing. Right. And I laid on that and I could get up off the ground. And I thought, oh, that's the start. Yeah. That feels bloody good.
Yeah, right.
And it was, 20 minutes of pain-free time. That was a bonus. I had something that wasn't a pill I had to take. It was just something I could do. I could relax, and I woke up and I felt the benefit of it. And I think that really clicked something in motion that, hey, I need to listen to my body. I need to feel it.
Yeah.
Then I found the breath work. So this is where I really started to understand that I had a breathing dysfunction from a long time ago. I'd actually, in my teens and early 20s, I got really into spearfishing, which essentially is just freediving for food. But I also realized that my breathing was so dysfunctional then. I was doing these different CO2 tables and all these old school type of breathwork trainings that my friends could do and get really quick benefits from, and then start to plateau. And I just got no benefit from it. I was gasping for air all the time. I was still mouth breathing. So I started to click in that there's something wrong there. Particularly, I got onto the Wim Hof breathing, which a really good friend of mine, a chiropractor in Sydney, Dr. Nick Dorr, he'd spoken to me about it about 5 years before. And I think we were swimming in the ocean, and he just said to me, hey, there's this really cool guy, Wim Hof, that they've just found he can influence his immune system. And of course, I was probably thinking about going out and partying that night, and I just said, "Oh, that sounds cool," and just kept on swimming.
Yeah.
And then I called up Nico, and I said, "What was that guy you were telling me about? Right? I need to."
So you
know
4 years later.
Yeah. Because he was mentioning how good it was for
Yeah.
pain relief. And anyway, got onto that. There was no app, YouTube clip, nothing. I did it on my lounge room floor. My wife had to help me lay down. I couldn't lay down properly by myself. And I was going to do 3 rounds, which is what most people do. I got through maybe 2. I jumped up and I was like, oh, feeling this already. Like, I'm feeling this. This is releasing. My back feels good. Again, no idea what was happening. I was just feeling into things. I didn't even ice bath for like 2 months. It just wasn't part of the program that I was doing for myself. Logistically, it was difficult. And that really started me just feeling into things. I finished up firefighting. Not long after that, I felt the need to be home with our daughter on the way. And again, we're living in the Northern Rivers here, and I did find a job. I came home. I was managing a team for the state government, managing the state highways in emergencies in New South Wales. So that's how I transitioned back here full time.
Wow. See, something quite, I guess, if you take a more bird's eye view, what I found, and people of course know that by now, is that we normally, we don't look at the causes of our issues. We really just fix the symptoms, and some of them are significant. Yeah, I can't walk. But that can be a symptom. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your leg or your foot. And I think it comes from that discord between a system that just looks at you and says, can see what goes wrong. You pointed towards that. But there's no deeper exploration of like, well, what's your lifestyle like? Like, what are you eating? What are the movements? Depends on the doctor. And it's not a hard and fast rule that there's no interaction. But overall, you interact with a medical system that is quite limited to really understand all the different things and how that even impacts the body. It's still that way. And I found that always fascinating talking to a more traditional medical systems like Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, because that's a given that they have to go there and figure out things to actually really be able to help you properly. And it's unfortunate, right?
Yeah. The medical system that we've built our society around. Again, I preface this all the time. It is fantastic, and it saves lives. But that's what it needs to do. It needs to save lives. It doesn't need to sustain health. That's not what it's built for.
Right.
But me included, that's how I'm brought up to see that, is that it sustains health. And when I'm not healthy, I go and get support from that system. I completely disagree with that now, knowing what I know and living the life that I do, and now teaching what I teach, is that we've got all these other things around, all these other practitioners, and we call them lots of things. They could even be as close to the medical system as allied health practitioners or alternate health practitioners, but they're the ones that cultivate health. And when we need a specific specialist that knows something specifically about one part of the body, we then consult the medical system, because they're not going to look at the body holistically. They're dedicated their life to the pituitary gland or the spleen, which is fantastic. We need that knowledge occasionally. But when off the bat, if we're going to these people, we're not getting a holistic view of the body. The second part of that is the lifestyle we live. We're so rushed for time, we want answers, right? Which is why we have this pharmaceutical drug pandemic, which takes the Western world by storm, because we just want a quick fix. I don't care about my holistic health. I've got this problem and I want it fixed. So we just mask. And I know your listeners don't need to be harped on about that, but I think that's the crux of our problem.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's certainly a good reminder to actually, I guess, acknowledge that we need to be empowered to actually take care of quite a bit of that issue. Because if you, let's just say, really fundamentally don't understand what causes obesity, then you become part of a system that tries to help you, but it will not be able to help you to the degree that you could with the right knowledge and the right dedication to actually get through this obesity, if it is one that you can actually reverse, which quite a few can.
Yep.
And I found that that's a typical example of it really puts pressure on the medical system, which is a different topic altogether, because, we actually can't sustain this financially, and more countries cannot financially, because too many people are in the system that shouldn't be. That shouldn't be from the point of view, like if we actually address that knowledge way earlier of like, how do you prepare your own food that is not highly processed? It starts as simple as that, right? And because otherwise you will end up with certain health problems that come just from food, that from, as you said, from lifestyle and so on. If people would know that as teenagers, eventually when issues come up, I think they would connect the dots and say like, okay, now it's time to change. But I don't believe that everyone would have that knowledge to actually know that, as you said, you had no idea that, this had something to do with breathing and with other things rather than just your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We were chatting before and I said how most people, especially locally in the Northern Rivers that know me, would view me as the ice bath guy, but that's just what people see from the outside. I'm most passionate about breathwork and holistic health. On the medical system, I'll give you a personal relevant example right now. It's relevant to me because in a lot of my sessions, I get questions about my thoughts on the medical system. And I always say that the practices I teach are fantastic, especially if this is a group breathwork session. I'll say, look, breathwork is fantastic for lots of reasons, but it's not going to heal a fractured bone, right? We need other practices in our life and other specialists. Now I'm going to have to address that comment that I make because you might not know it, but right now I've got a fractured foot. I'm 3 weeks in. I have a proximal fracture in my 5th metatarsal of the right foot. I was told that the fracture it's clean fracture. It's not connected at all. I've got the styloid process, which is the bony part of the bone just floating. I was told by a couple of specialists up here that I need to screw it straight away. And I just didn't feel like I need to screw it. I said, why do you want to screw it straight away? And they're like, well, you've got to get rid of the pain. We've got to set it so that it heals properly over 6 weeks. I said, well, one, I'm not in pain. So I presented with no pain. I got rid of the swelling in 48 hours through my wife's incredible practice as a homeopath and something else I used. So I'm not in any pain. And I feel like I'm going to get through this. I'm weight bearing already 48 hours after. I ended up finding a fantastic podiatric surgeon who backed my own assessment of that and said it's very, very rare, but we can get a fibrous union and a bony union in the way that your foot's presenting. He said, I just recommend maybe wearing a moon boot, see how you go for 6 weeks. I wore the moon boot for 10 days. I'm now out of the moon boot. I'm full weight bearing. I'm very cautious. I'm not doing anything silly. But I'm on the way to healing a fractured bone with zero intervention whatsoever. And I don't want to sound like I'm beating my own drum, and I'm definitely not telling people to go and do this, but have some sense of your agency of your body, know your body. I would never have done this 15 years ago, but I feel like I know my body quite well now to know how progressive my healing's going, if it's healing at all. I have, through my back injury specifically, I have an innate sense of my own pain and what that's telling me. I feel confident in taking that forward. And I think most people right now would not know that I've got a fractured foot.
No, I didn't notice.
Yeah. And when I do tell people, I haven't told many people that, but when I do tell people, it's almost like they think, oh, it mustn't be that fractured. It must just be a little one. I'm like,
I know.
Oh, no, the bones are actually not connected at all. It will be. Don't you worry.
So when you think about, those practices in particular, the breath work as well as the ice bath, how would you say that has something to do with you having that, let's say, belief and so far experience that actually is going well with this particular injury?
Oh, definitely. If you're eating corn chips and drinking Coke on the lounge and you go out tonight and fracture your wrist, you will not have the same trajectory of self-healing that I'm having right now. It most definitely has a lifestyle factor leading into it. For want of a better term, this is quite cloudy, but your level of health or understanding of health or holistically in your lifestyle contributes to how you're going to move through anything, illness, injury, leading up to it. 2 perfect examples, my back injuries, what they had leading up to them, to this foot fracture now, what it's had leading into it. Very hard to compare 2 different injuries, 2 different times of life, but the way I'm moving through it, for me, I know it's completely different.
Yeah. I think that when many people talk about lifespan in terms of how long they live, but more and more another term comes up, which is like the health span. And I think if the consciousness goes there and people think actually, how long will I be healthy versus how long will I live? Because you can live a long time, but being miserable from the age of 50 or 60 onwards because you have a lot of aches and pains and or worse and need to be on the medications and so on. It starts to change people's consciousness in my mind early on, because you're not aiming on wanting to live long, because that could be, one shot of whiskey seemed to help you to reach 100. And, those things might help. I don't know. But it's certainly it's one of those things there's the Holy Grail. Whereas if you, and this is what you have to do, this is what my grandma always did and so on. But when you look at the health span, you start earlier to assess where the health is going and not accept it, I guess, because the goal is to be healthy rather than just to live long. You can have a aches and pain and just say, well, I still will live long, and that might be so. If your goal is actually, I want to have a quality life, which is the health span thing, I think there is a chance that you actually swivel your focus towards that and be more sensitive early on, be more proactive, maybe.
Health span, I haven't come across that, but I love it.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole longevity thing, when people talk about that's a term that is more and more debated, and it certainly helps me to really like, I don't actually mind how long I live sickly, but however long I live, I want to be healthy, and that's much more important.
Oh, much more important. The whole I'm not at ease in the longevity conversation myself, and it leads into the anti-aging thing as well. And I mean, first question that comes up is, what are you doing it for? And the second question comes up is, how much time are you spending on that? And then what are you using that extra time for? Are you using that extra time to live or just be alive?
Yeah.
Which I don't see anyone passionate about living, prolonging or wanting to prolong their life that way. Personal stance on that one.
The saying that, when you're young, when you're young and healthy, you have 1,000 dreams and wishes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're sick and often old, you only have one. And I found this is really, really powerful. And I've brought this up in previous podcasts, that there's certainly a huge co-benefit of you staying healthy for longer, because when you don't have that feeling of I just barely can get through the day because it's all difficult, because my body is not functioning, my mind is not functioning, whatever it is. At that moment, you don't think about how to make others' life easier, better, and bring joy to others, or just participate in community. I'm convinced that there's such a strong link that it's just not maybe as quantifiable as it should, but in my mind clearly comes to that conclusion that if we find ways to have just healthier lives, it will be just good for community, because people have a zest for life at that moment. Right?
That's infectious, isn't it?
Yeah.
In a great way. No,
definitely. Yes. Yeah. And I think where we live, we certainly see more of that, because people realize that there's a different way and a more effective way when it comes to, well, you stated this as a self-empowered health. Is that how yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think so. That the example of my fractured foot now is it, right? So again, people would see me on social media or maybe attend my workshops and say he's the breathwork or the ice bath guy. I usually only work one-on-one with people holistically on the body through my studies under Paul Chek. It's not something you would normally do in a group. And so that's quite a niche market of, let's say, the health or the wellness area. However, when you're immersed in that, whether or not you're facilitating like I am, or you're just into it, you find something you like, whether it's a movement-based thing, a breath work, cold exposure, whatever it might be, I don't feel like there's any way to get around it opening doors for you into other parts of your life, right? You're bettering yourself. Whatever that thing under the wellness banner is, it's to make you well, right? It's to avoid illness, avoid bad lifestyle choices. It's going to open a door. When you start to walk through that door, then you discover other things. So let's say you discovered breath work first. You're going to walk through that door. You're going to discover other practices that you might like. You might attend a Kundalini session and go, wow, this is pretty powerful. I really like this. You might attend some type of movement-based thing, or a men's group. You might go to a men's group and start talking. You have all these other things that start to blossom from that. And then all of a sudden, you haven't just started breathwork. you've started a whole self movement where you start to know your body and your mind a lot better. And then every choice you make, whether you know it or not, starts to have a little tweak in there. And you start to assess, is this choice actually what I want to do? You might, like I was in Sydney, going out a lot, having great time on the beers with friends. All of a sudden, someone's giving you a message going, hey, we're meeting here for beers tonight. And you're like, oh, shit, I think I want to surf early in the morning. And you start to have these little things ask questions, and slowly that part of your life starts to quieten down and other things open. So I think once you do start to immerse yourself in a practice which is good for the body, whatever that might be, in my experience, there's not that many people that slam that door shut and don't want to feel that way. They start to open more doors, walk through, and find better ways to support their health.
Yeah, and I guess what happens next, I found, is that, so let's say, people discover ice baths for themselves or saunas. There's then also community movement to make it a social thing, which is great. That makes it all much more holistic, really, because that's the whole thing. When people are too focused just on their health and nothing else matters anymore, it's normally quite a soul journey. It can be, meaning like that at home they do all these things, then I meditate, and then I do red light, and then I do this and this, and then I have my smoothie number 1 and number 3 and whatever, right? Versus, I guess, the sessions that you, for example, do for breath sessions as well as ice baths, they are also something you can do in a group, and that creates that interaction that what normally have on the beers, and not much healthy things are really happening other than, of course, the interaction with others, which is healthy, but you can bring it into a overall environment that supports also the activity that you do at the moment, right?
Oh, definitely. I think in a group session, particularly breathwork, like you said, connection is the unexpected thing that almost everyone finds. And yep, disclaimer on that, there's always a heavy emotional person or couple of people in the groups that maybe something's taken them off guard, they weren't expecting. And that's a beautiful thing too, not to shy away from, but connection might not be front of mind for them straight after. They might want a bit of solitude. But for most people who come to a breathwork session, granted, particularly men, not many of them are coming away with what they expected. It can be quite a profound experience for them, particularly breathwork in a group setting, because there's a lot of energy in the room, which isn't experienced when you're by yourself. But I think connection is such a huge part of that. Hard to get when you're by yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And it's probably because it's so natural for us that if we are actually in a great, in a flow state, that the connection is just what you really want. Yeah. I do know those people that, are really emotional, or it's a big session for them, but to me, it focuses me even more. There's something when someone sort of like cries or vents their anger, it draws me right into my center. So when it happens, I do appreciate it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way to I know other people get irritated, I'm sure.
Well, I think, and breathwork's a funny little niche these days, and growing weirder by the month, because it's not a protected industry. Anyone can go and do a 2-day breathwork course and become a facilitator. And unfortunately, with the growing influence of social media, it's about part of the breathwork world is about having this big cathartic release and not stopping till we get there in a group. And it's definitely not what I teach or facilitate. But that can be quite off-putting for some people. It can be quite dangerous if the facilitator isn't trained.
Yeah, I thought there's the body of the Breathwork Association, international as well as locally. National?
Yeah,
but they can't enforce.
No. No. So, for instance, with insurance these days, there's 2 major academies that you can train under, and then have insurance in Australia and New Zealand. But anyone can sign up for that insurance. It's like non-underwritten. So if I have done a 2-day breathwork course, I can get that insurance and provide that to anyone. But when push comes to shove, if something happens, the accreditation I have, if I was that person, wouldn't be covered. It's quite a sticky little area.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate. And this is sort of like the balance between, if new modalities or ancient modalities get rediscovered, how much regulation do you want? Because if the regulation is too too strong, and I've seen that with amazing practices as well as products, it actually gets pulled back so much that at that moment it's actually not therapeutic anymore, and it doesn't really help people, because it's regulated too strong.
That's right. But the responsibility is on the facilitator, right?
Yeah.
And then it's on the individual to ensure that they're supporting someone who's respecting that, not industry, but that practice, for instance.
Yeah. And when it comes to ice baths, I mean, there's certainly, well, even under the supervision of, not supervision, but, there were certainly really loose guidelines in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And, it causes issues up to death. But then millions and millions of people have also shifted there. And I would probably say I wouldn't ban ice bath for that, but, ice bathing. But there's...
Very different one, because it's such a short amount of time that people do it.
Yeah.
And there's so much information on the internet these days. Granted, some of the information can be incorrect.
Yeah.
But in general, and I always get asked about Dr. Huberman. I was very lucky enough to do some training by Dr. Trish Scott, who is part of his lab team, head researcher for his team. And she did my Wim Hof training. Super incredible lady. Amazing. He, in part, has made breathwork and ice bathing so popular. He comes at it completely analytical, whereas myself, I like to come from things from a bit more of the emotional body. Not way down the emotional path where I don't discount the research. I love the research, but I love to put that into a tangible way for people to understand, where I think he just looks at numbers and gives you numbers. So it's great to have someone like that. But my point being, there's so much information out there now. Breathwork is a little bit more of a darker arts type thing. There's a bit more information out there, but it's not as simple as getting cold and knowing the physiological benefits to it. It can be facilitated in such different ways. Even the ways that I've trained and like to facilitate, I can change them and know the difference I'm going to get in the people that are there. It's very subtle.
It's all about the facilitator, really.
I feel like that's a big part.
Yeah. Where do you do your sessions, for the group sessions?
Yeah, so if people come to probably the main sessions that I run, a breathwork followed by an ice bath, and you get all of the information about that, how to do it safely, what it's going to do to you, but also how to play with that yourself. So that would be a full 3-hour session. I run those locally in the Northern Rivers, Gold Coast, Sydney and Melbourne, whether it's public or private. And then the only other thing that I organise is a weekly session, which I've just come from this morning, at Newrybar here, just a small little hinterland town, which I love it there. That's called the Conscious Club. It's for anyone who's done that session, because it's just 1 hour.
Yeah.
It's in and out. It's just 5 rounds of our breath work into an ice bath, connect afterwards, which is such a big part of it. And then we're on our way. Other than that, everything I do is just privately based. So private groups, corporate teams, sporting teams. And then I float between the experiential breath work. So giving people an experience that they may never take on with them and do it again, but they wanted that experience. And when I work with people in a more consistent way, it's more targeted breathing. So the functional breathing side, which I'm trained in, and performance breathing as well. So that might be for high performing corporate people. So a group of CEOs, for instance, or people under stress, high stress environments in corporate, right through to professional athletes, where I might work with them over a series of weeks, a 6 to 8 week plan.
That's actually what you're saying about corporate is, it's really close to my heart, because I know when being under a lot of pressure, or when experiencing that pressure, I would say, then, breathing can be such a great tool. But if you actually are a conscious breather anyway, you don't often get into these dicey situations where you lose your temper, or you really freak out, or you can't sleep at night, and all of those things. And I think slowly people realize that for having a career, for having a great salary or a lot of impact, you don't have to sacrifice your health, or your mental health in particular, because there are tools that not only prevent that you get to the point, but you normally make also better decisions, because they don't come from a fight and flight, highly stressed mind. Something to consider, I guess, when you listen in is like, do you have a group of people that would really benefit for experiencing that? I have done that with really sort of you call them high fly, sort of high end sort of CEOs, and it's certainly something that gave them a lot, and their teams too. It's something that really is not as often seen in the corporate world, but I think it becomes more and more because we realize, like, right, actually, it's sort of like bridges from this really sterile, really left brain sort of logical sort of thing to a more integrated thing. I think we're on that way.
What I might be my background and what I focus on, but what I see in great leaders, even if I don't know them, but I see someone walk in the door, I see someone command respect, might be the captain of a team. The thing I see unilaterally in all of them is good posture and nasal breathing.
Wow.
Totally.
Nasal breathing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I worked with a team last year who were dubbed as a really high performing team to me, but rubbish breathers and performance wise, not showing their full potential. But purely through breathing through the mouth, even in training at 80% training, sometimes 90% training, breathing through the mouth, not composed at all, making terrible decisions, and highly skilled people performing well below their potential.
So how is that? What's going on there? And then afterwards, I have to ask you, like, did you actually do something to your nose, that you breathe differently, or is it just a technique?
Yeah. Oh, great. I can answer both.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So short answer, it's almost impossible to change.
Once you're a mouth breather,
Kind of. So I mentioned my good friend Nick Dorr, chiropractor, before. He's much more than a chiropractor. I have done some work with him. I went to the Solomon Islands with him last year for 7 days to put into practice basically a holistic circadian rhythm type living. However, what blew me away was his work on a device which he's co-created. It's called the Oov, which I've used for about 8 years now, just for my own practice. And he's worked out a way to integrate primitive reflexes which have been retained. And it's not a new thing. It's usually done through laser. Dr. Robert Malello is a big one in the States who's able to do it. Nico's worked out a series of ways to do it with incredible results. We're able to do it on ourselves over there in the Solomons. It lit a light bulb in my head. So up until that point, I'd been working with people in a one-on-one capacity for breath retraining or functional breathing. And that's where my passion lied, with my nose. However, my results were terrible on myself. And I just put it down to how much trauma I'd had to my nose. I've had septal surgery. So I've had my septum rebuilt. Still didn't really make any difference to me whatsoever. And I still get constant congestion. You can probably hear I'm very nasally, which as a breathwork practitioner is
not ideal.
Yeah, but I come from a place of knowing and learning, right?
Yeah.
That's how I like to look at it. Anyway, how can I change my own breathing? How can I change the breathing of athletes or high-performing business people? The problem we have is that when I run a rebreath training program, almost everyone will finish that program and feel fantastic and go, geez, thanks, Benny. Like, I got so much out of it.
Yeah.
What they've done, they breathe through the nose more, maybe all the time, maybe just more, and they've slowed their breathing rate down. They're the two things that everyone leaves with. All of the other things we've worked on, the breath pattern, what muscles we're recruiting, that will only happen while they're thinking about it. So when I'm at their place or they're in clinic with me, they'll do it. As soon as they walk away and they're driving the car, they're thinking about putting the blinker on, turning right, they're thinking about whether it's all out the window, because that works off the neural loops that we've created. We have a sensory motor loop, which comes from outside in, tells us what to do. We have a neural loop, which makes a map in the brain and says, from this sensory information, we need to do this. That loop gets more imprinted the more we do something. So throwing a ball, for instance, if we're a baseball coach and we see that the pitcher come in and they've thrown 20,000 pitches and we're like, oh, their elbow's not in the right place, right? We need to retrain that. To retrain that depends on how many repetitions you've done before. A little bit different for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? But let's say it's 2,000 pitches we've got to do, 10% of the pitches they've done in their life.
Yeah, right.
To get a different action on that. It's possible, but it's going to take longer. If we get a kid come in and they've pitched 500 times, we can change it really quickly, right? What about breaths?
Yeah, right.
How many breaths are you taking in your life?
It's quite a beaten path.
Right?
Yeah.
We got no chance of doing that. And that's where I was hitting the stumbling block. And then when I was over there with Nick, and he explained to me how we have a chance to remap that neural loop, there's a big opening there to make some change. So I'm not working with anyone to retrain breath at the moment. I've stopped until I finish that training with Nico.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's a bit of a futile exercise.
Are there any sort of physical things that you like if you tape up your mouth?
Yeah, so taping the mouth is incredible, right? Look at it as on average 8 hours a day where you can get some training in. So it's not as confrontational as people think. Out there, if you're imagining duct tape on the mouth like a hostage, it's not like that at all. It used to be like that. These days, one of the guys I've trained under, Patrick McEwen, under the Oxygen Advantage Academy, he's got his own, which is basically elastoplast around the mouth with a hole in the middle. And so you just stretch it out and you stick it on. I've got a moustache and it still goes above that and sticks on. And it just provides some resistance on my mouth. So at night, I'm breathing through the nose. And when I go to open my mouth, I feel that resistance and I wake up just slightly. And when I first started using it, I'd wake up and then I'd remember, oh yeah, I've got the mouth tape on. I close my mouth and I go back to sleep. All of a sudden, 2-3 weeks in, I'm not waking up at all. I'm sleeping fantastic. It's one of the simplest health hacks I could give someone because it's so easy to do.
What do you Google to find them?
Mouth tape. There is so many different.
Oh, I mean the one that goes around.
Oh, that's called myotape.
Oh.
Yeah. So I sell that one on our website.
Yeah, great.
It's still the only one I've found where the lips can actually still open.
Yeah.
Which psychologically is much more easily to.
It makes sense. So we would just go on soulhouse.studio and find it there?
Yeah. So soulhouse.studio. Soulhouse Studio is the company I run with my wife. I mentioned her before. Probably just due to growing children. She's been a little bit quiet the last few years. She comes back to practicing, moves away, but she's the powerhouse in what we do. She's I know that I'm definitely going to take a back seat to her in the next decade. So I think we've stopped rearing or growing children and we're just fertilizing them now for the next few years. So she's back into practicing as a naturopath and a homeopath. I actually listened to your recent podcast with Katie Gregory. She trained with Katie back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, quite a long time ago. And yeah, Soul House is us together. It's what we practice together. And up until recently, I was doing my breath and cold practice. She was doing her naturopathy and her homeopathy. And we've started offering things truly together now. We just spent a week down the snowy mountains and had what we call a recalibration, which put into practice basically 15 years of our living of circadian health principles, and plus all of our knowledge in what we do. We put that into 5 days down there and just making everything, we call it making health simple again.
Yes.
Because that's what
has to be.
Yeah. We are not interested in quick fixes. We're interested in a stable life that breeds health.
You know, with breath work, is that something you can do by yourself as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I've got my car out the front.
Yeah.
People always ask me, do you do breath work by yourself?
Yeah.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
But it's not what you might think. Again, I've created that neural loop from sensory information. So when I get into my car, it doesn't happen to any other car. It doesn't happen when I get into the wife's car or a hire car, but I get into my car and I sit down. The first thing I think of is, what breath work am I going to practice? Now it's purely functional breathing. Never ever do something energetic while you're driving a car. Right. But I get in, I sit down. I'm like, right, what am I going to do? Am I going to do 4 counts? Am I going to do box breathing, triangle breathing? What am I going to do? And until I forget to do it, that's what I'm doing while I'm driving. It might be 3 minutes, might be 20 minutes. It might be all the way to Sydney. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's my little practice.
I recently felt sort of below par. I didn't really, actually people around me got sick and I could feel like, oh, I'm not the type of person that actually goes down properly. It's normally just I don't feel drained and, just sit it out. Like my constitution is more like a rubber band. It's not something that snaps easily. But one day I really felt just not great. And so I sort of put myself away in a room and thought like, oh yeah, I just watch a movie and relax, which is really rare for me to even do. But then I thought, oh, maybe I should actually do a breath session. And it's probably not quite proper to do it by myself, but I did a 5-hour one with conscious breathing, which you want normally a practitioner there if you go for longer, because you have a suspended breathing and normally the lips get blue. But somehow I would go in and out to that quite naturally. I've done it for many years, so I think I can snap myself out of suspended breath, which seems to come. And I felt amazing after these 5 hours. I mean, I felt quite spacey, and I had a good night's sleep, and it was gone. And I often think, I mean, that's oxygen. But then I guess you talk to practitioners, and my teacher would say, like, yeah, your meridians also really get a kick out of it. And I would say, if I have an injury or I hit myself accidentally somewhere, something like that, a bruise, all of that, in the breath session, the first 30 minutes, that's where it hurts, and then it sort of like goes. Do you have a bit of a theory on how what actually happens in the body and some experience there?
Oh, there's definitely physiology to it. So to just give a bit of context, you said 5-hour session. So you're coming at it from a lifetime or X amount of years of good health practices, right?
Yeah.
Again, someone listening that's just coming into this might try the same thing and not have the same results.
You don't want that was sort of under guidance.
But just to highlight that you've got a great platform of health leading into that. Now, depending on the breath work you're practicing, you have different physiological expectations and other things which are not exclusive to you but happen to everyone, no matter how you perform that breath, right? Particularly with suspended breath holds, you're going to come out in and out of hypoxia. You have a lot of great benefits in what I think the main part is moving energy in breath work. We, particularly with illness and injury, so you mentioned the burning sensation with my back is something I noticed. It felt like a stabbing pain. I got to breathe through a grade 2 medial ligament injury after I became a breathwork practitioner, and it was fantastic to have that injury to feel what the breathwork was doing. I'm now doing it with my foot, and I've lost all of that pain in the foot when I'm doing breathwork. But at the start, I could feel that pain as I was doing the breathing. It's an energetic practice. We can't deny that. We're moving energy through the body, particularly with that injury that came on in my foot. I had some swelling in the first 48 hours, like I said. Now, I was using homeopathic remedies from my wife, which really helped with that. But I wanted to encourage fluid movement and energy movement. I didn't want to suppress that. So most people said, oh, yeah, you'll be fine. You got in the ice bath. I haven't been in the ice bath since that injury. I used heat. Again, I read about it about a year ago, and it just stuck in my head, and I wanted to give it a go. I've got that opportunity now. So I used heat. It allowed the fluid to move, but it also allowed the fresh blood and the oxygen to come in, which the breath work helps with. I felt that energy moving throughout the session, and that's only like a 20-minute breath work session, right? So I think that the physiology is the physiology. That's going to be the same for everyone. We're going to get similar benefits depending on what breathwork practice we use. What I think a lot of people don't tap into until they're quite used to it is the movement of energy in the body, which I think is the most powerful thing of breathwork for me. With illness, the last thing I want to do when I'm crook is do some energetic breathing. But I do it because I know it's going to help, right? And if I'm feeling really sick, I might knock out 5 minutes of active mouth inhales and active mouth exhales, which most people might call power breathing, right? It's exhausting and it's painful. And I might do 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then I'll be exhausted and have a quick nap. I might be napping for half an hour, get up, do it again. But I'm rarely sick for longer than 24 hours, which leads me into something else that I just thought is that, your health is nothing unless you know how to move through illness as well, right? Illness is a part of life. And I truly believe that that good health and living a healthy life is not a life without illness, because we're exposed to that, right? But how do we move through that? Likewise, injury, which is why I'm pretty ecstatic to have a fractured foot right now. It's not impacting my life really at all.
Right.
I'm not running, I'm not kicking balls, but man, I get to work through something that not many people do and look forward to it.
Bit of an experiment.
Yeah.
When it comes to, look, I'm blessed with with great health, I think. But at the same time, I'm really health conscious, and that started from a young age because I had an operation with 16, taking part of my intestine out, and as part of that, I was really sensitive to eat anything. If it wasn't chewed properly, it hurt, and if the temperature or the air pressure changed, like if the weather would change, I would know because it would hurt. And so what that meant is like I felt my body, that started to just be a normal conscious thing to do. So and that went, the pain went eventually, like after 5 to 10 years. But the consciousness of what happens to my body when I eat something, or just being aware of the body, is an incredible gift. Because ever since, I guess I monitor things, and my real point is this, and I found this more over here than in Europe. People take a lot of painkillers, and but like really quickly, like something is not quite right, painkiller. And it always scared me because I'm a bit scared of medicine. That's just my thing. But when it comes to painkillers, it really masks the issue, which means if I'm talking about feeling my body at that moment, I don't anymore. And when people say, like, I take a painkiller because I feel a little bit not so good, and then they went really down afterwards, I would argue that if you wouldn't have taken the painkiller, your body would have not allowed you to keep working or to really use so much energy because it's needed to somewhere else, or it's just not available. And you would have gone to bed at 3 o'clock. You would have basically knocked out work and said, like, I'm actually too sick, rather than pushing through with the painkiller. And I hope you have an employer that acknowledges that that's okay. You go home and you just lie down and you have 20 hours of sleep or whatever it is, right? But I think there's a lot to be said of like, yeah, we all get sick. Do you mask it? I mean, with the painkillers, exactly what you do. You have no idea how bad it really is. And it's quite a topic for me because I'm like,
pain is, I mean, it's a common little saying that pain's a teacher, but it's a mentor as well. It's guiding you into your own body's intuition, your inner tutor, telling you what needs to be done. You just got to listen to it.
Yeah.
And the only reason we mask it is because it's like a shadow, right? It's uncomfortable to face.
Yeah.
That's it. And it gets us back to providing for society, whatever that is in our role that we perform. It gets us back to doing that quicker.
Yeah. And it's great that it exists. No problem that people, I don't have a problem people taking it, but sometimes I would argue that wait a little bit longer, or if this is not something like, of course, as females, for example, and I know many that have to take quite strong painkillers once a month, and can probably address it eventually or not. I don't know. Like I'm not the expert on that. My point is more like when it becomes a habit, just whenever there's discomfort, you do that, because that's actually no difference of like, I don't know, I guess drinking alcohol and just like, getting over an uncomfortable thought. And maybe you just have to sit with like, maybe I have to change my life a little bit so that this uncomfortable thought is not coming up, rather than just drinking alcohol. Sorry, simplifying it, but
that's right. Yeah.
I guess self-empowered to do something about it, right? And there are lots of answers or avenues to explore to get to a point where you're self-empowered to actually take charge of what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. There's we've connected to quite a lot. This area is great for it, but we're connected to quite a lot of practitioners and ones that are deeply in the medical system who want to do the right thing. We're lucky to have that here too. We've got 2 great local GPs. One's our family doctor, but I love that we can go to our GP, who we drive 40 minutes to, because we're not going to use a GP at the drop of a hat. But when we go there, we know that he is looking to investigate with us. We have never been prescribed anything from him. And the last time I presented with something that I wanted to chat over with him, we got talking about my childhood. It's like, tell me what happened in your family home, which is fantastic, right? Where they're outliers in a system which is looking for the quick fix.
Yeah. I think that will change, because it's pretty mainstream nowadays that people understand that, certain things that happen in your past and your lifestyle have something to do with how you present and how your body presents itself and your health presents. And I think the issues are just too big not to acknowledge that, there are other ways to go about it. I just think, at the end of the day, and I often say that, it's like that. I know a lot of doctors, a lot. And one of my best friends is a pediatrician, a wonderful pediatrician, so is his wife. But the system is not really supportive And it's really tricky because it's complex. I mean, the body is complex, and the medical system and the medical knowledge is complex. So it makes sense that you become a specialist, or it makes sense that you can't investigate all the different things. And so far, there are not many courses where you can just go and they give you a really nice broad toolkit that sort of bridges both, because then there comes, of course, regulation in place. There are also interest groups and, big pharma that also push in it. I guess all I want to say is, like, we're all in it together, and we've created a system that has some really great benefits when it comes to medical, emergencies and all the rest of it. It just hasn't become fully holistic, all-rounder 360 system. But I think it will come because the people's heart is often in the right place. Yeah.
I hope so. We had a quick chat before AI came up.
Yeah.
And look, that's the way the world's going, right? Where we're going to lose connection.
Yeah.
We're going to steam forward with a completely different way of life. And interestingly, I've never felt more secure in the longevity of what I do, because we're going to need to come back to the body at some point. With AI, for instance, I know a lot of people will use AI and there'll be nefarious reasons for why they're doing it. But I think I like to think, and I hope that the majority of population will be able to remove the mundane parts of their life, create space. And what are they going to do with that space? Yeah. Hopefully they return to themselves. They have more time to return to themselves and their body. Because let's face it, time is the thing that we've lost in the last 2 decades, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I saw my parents work really hard, but outside of work, they had time in abundance. We're losing that in general. And in a place where we live, we're very lucky. We see life a little slower. But coming from cities, you mentioned you live in Sydney. I lived in Sydney. Very different. I go back to see family and friends. Very different way of life. So I like to imagine that there is a lot of hope in that space. And although what I teach and what I will continue to move into is the antithesis of technology and AI, I think it's going to be needed more than ever.
Yeah. I think just quickly on that topic, I found when I read sort of really futuristic novels, some make it really clear that resources are abundantly available. At that moment, you don't have to work for money anymore. And you can see that, like in wealthy countries like Denmark, which is one of the happiest populations there is, they do a lot of community service, because when work doesn't give you meaning, and 70% of the people working are not happy in their work, which means, like, okay, maybe work is not often giving you a lot of meaning, but just something to do. It comes down to human connection, and that connection is what's then meaningful. I'm very, very busy just with life, and partly by design of being a businessman and with a family, but another one is also like, I'm probably on social media, I don't know, it's just half an hour a day, I would say, but I'm still am. And that's half an hour that I could actually look for connection with people, or connection with myself as well. I think people forget that too. It's really great to numb yourself just by watching one movie after the other on Saturday and Sunday, then go back to work and being just so occupied with your work, and you actually don't have no connection as well else. So I'm excited about I guess a time where people have more time because resources are more abundantly available through automation, AI, and all that comes. It could really be really, really good.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of hope there. For what it could bring. And I'm not skilled in that space, so I'm not speaking from a place of experience or knowledge. A little tidbit on that I mentioned to you before offline. I didn't have social media until just before the big floods we had here in 2022, and after that, things got a bit wild for me on social media. And I connected with a mate, and I was telling him how hard I was finding social media. It's not what I want to do, but it was starting to help feed my family. And he said, "Look, mate, just do what I do." And he just said it so casually. He goes, "Just the 3 C's of social media. I use it to create and connect. And if I'm using it to consume for more than those two, I'm doing something wrong." I was like, wow, I think about that every time. I only use Instagram, but I think about that every time I click on that Instagram app. I'm like, what am I doing right now? Am I going to put something on there that I've done or that I'm doing so people know? Am I going to connect with someone, which is mainly what I use it for? I go on there if I don't have someone's phone number. But if I am intentionally going on there just to kill time, I end it straight away.
Yeah.
It's really helped.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's a good reminder. I think there's some evolution needed for all humanity, not only for the young ones, but for the old ones just as much. Yeah, it's not all good. Well, Benny, thank you so much. It was really, really nice to connect with you and learn your story and what you do. Really important for me is that you let us know how we best connect with you. We want to do, actually, you do so many things. Could you just quickly run me through sort of the things that you offer?
Yeah, so those, I do a public session that anyone can join between Melbourne, Sydney, around here, the Northern Rivers. Usually every 2 months or so, there'll be something happening there. There's the weekly event at Newry Bar called the Conscious Club. Other than that, pretty much all of my work is private, like I said. So people will contact me for a group they've got, maybe a single, a husband and wife, whatever it might be, a team, sporting club. And that's for a whole range of breathwork or cold activities. It could just be either the normal workshop with some Wim Hof style breathing with ice bath. It could be targeted breathwork, targeted for what they want to get out of it. And then, finishing up my studies with the Czech Academy in the next 2 months, which I'm really excited for. I already pretty much put all that knowledge into what I deliver at the moment, but to be able to do that in an official capacity,
very cool,
will be fantastic. It's working much more with the physical body, which hasn't been part of my practice at the moment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So we find you on soulhouse.studio, and then you got this handle.
Oh, yeah.
So on Instagram.
So I was working that job with the state government. COVID hit. I had some pretty staunch beliefs in things, and I got stood down from that job like a lot of wonderful people in that era. And I was wondering how I was going to provide for my wife and 2 kids and mortgage. And I've been doing breath work on the side just for fun. And my wife said, well, if you're going to start making more money with breath work, you got to have Instagram at least. I said, I'm never having it and I'm not doing it. And so without me knowing, she created a little fake account called Your Mate Benny. I tend to call everyone mate, so she just thought it was a bit funny. And then, as I mentioned, the floods hit, and I could use my experience in the floods, and I didn't have anyone to report to, which was fantastic. I didn't have a job at the time, so I went to work. I did some stuff in the rescue of the floods, and then had a bit of a voice there, and people knew me as Your Mate Benny, so it kind of had to stick.
Cool.
Yeah, my Instagram handle is Your Mate Benny. Our website that my wife and I operate our company through is soulhouse.studio. You can find me there.
Exciting. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all the work you've done and using yourself a little bit as an experiment to get there. Sounds like quite a path. But you got to an amazing offering already, and excited to hear what else you can offer in the future. It sounds really exciting.
Thanks, mate. I can't believe we haven't run into each other yet. We have very similar circles, but I'm sure we will now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope today's conversation inspired you. If you found value in it, please share this episode with someone who could benefit from its insights. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow us to stay in the loop and have the best life ever.